Hello again, everyone. This is Paul, and you may have noticed that I've got myself a new couch and a new viewing angle, and how appropriate because I'm going to view the latest angle in the Fire Emblem Fates trilogy, and that is Fire Emblem Fates Revelation. So a couple of things you have to be aware of when you're getting Revelation is, unlike Conquest and Birthright, where it's possible to get them either as this like dual game card or as an individual boxed version, but Revelation is DLC exclusive, meaning that you have to own one of the games, and then in-game you purchase the Revelation DLC. Unless you bought the special edition like me, in which it comes for free, but otherwise, yeah, you gotta shell out a bit more money. So, basically, what's there to review, you might be asking, now that you've reviewed both Birthright and Conquest? And quite honestly, not much. Because the gameplay, graphics, characters, even some of the maps are largely the same. So, pretty much the only two major differences in this version are the storyline and the way the maps are structured. So, a bit of story background without giving away too much is, in Birthright or Conquest, you choose to side with your blood-related family in the Kingdom of Hoshido, or your adopted family in the Kingdom of Nor. And Hoshido is a peace-loving nation, so in Birthright most of the battles take place because, you're ambushed. But in Nor, you're part of a conquering nation, where you're trying to take over the other kingdom. Revelation is where you choose to side with neither of them. So for the first couple of chapters, you're basically on the run from both kingdoms. And admittedly, that was probably the weakest part of the game, because even though it had a pretty cool story arc, on the other hand, most of the maps in like the first half were recycled from the other two games, though thankfully that's not too much of a detriment, because they take place in different settings and different scenarios. So for instance, a map that came really late in Conquest might be one of the first maps you encounter in Revelation. You'll be facing different enemies, you'll have a different mission objective, and stuff like that. Also, the difficulty level is a lot more forgiving than that of Birthright and Conquest. So you're allowed to grind this time around, which in Conquest you kind of had to cheat with the DLC, but in this you can grind right off the bat. And the maps themselves they felt a lot easier. I think I beat the final battle in like 5 turns, to put it into perspective. But where things start getting really interesting is the second half of the game, where you get these entirely new maps, where you have these really cool strategies, and I'm not gonna spoil them, because that would detract from the game, but just to give you one little example, there's a teaser of a map in Conquest where you can split one of your units into a sub-unit. And as hard as that is to describe, that's the kind of stuff you're expected to encounter throughout the second half of Revelation. So brace yourself for stuff you never thought was possible within the Fire Emblem universe. As if you thought Radiant Dawn's Tower of the Goddess, or whatever it's called, was cool enough. Now, story-wise, it's good, but I wouldn't say it's great. It's definitely more of a finisher. As great as Birthright and Conquest were, they're both phenomenal stories. But on the other hand, there was still a sense of incompleteness. There was maybe if I had done things differently, maybe the outcome could have been a lot better. So Revelation has a lot more completion, a lot more closure, a lot more, yeah, this is the finale. Especially once you get to the second half of the game and you have entirely new music tracks that weren't in either of the previous versions, and they definitely have more of a climactic feel to them, especially when you get to the final battle, which is this 3-part epic. Oh man, my heart was pounding so hard. I might have had 3 health left with one of my units, and I just felt so exhilarated. But if you know how to grind properly, you shouldn't really encounter that any other time in the game, which admittedly made me a little bit disappointed. But really, that's all I have to say. I guess the only reason I would recommend Revelation over Birthright or Conquest is if you want to miss out on any support conversations, because without spoiling too much, let's just say that you have way more options than ever. And so that leads to not only options in previous paths that you might have missed because one of them died or you chose to marry someone else, but on the other hand, you can also have supports that weren't possible in either path. So you could say it's a good fan service. But on the other hand, it's somewhat lacking in some of what makes most Fire Emblem games great. You know, there's usually a tragic death, there's usually a gut-wrenching betrayal, and there's a couple of those in Revelation, and the few that are there are very well done, but they don't have nearly as much oomph as they did in Conquest and Birthright. Like, one of the cinematics nearly had me choking up. There wasn't really any cinematic in Revelation that did that. And even some of the stuff they did was sort of like, I've kind of seen this before. So it's definitely still a good game, and I would definitely recommend playing it last, because to put it in perspective, it would be kind of like if you read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows as your first Harry Potter book before reading the first one, so you wouldn't know what came before. So definitely play it last. If I had to rate the three in order of my least favorite to favorite, I would probably say Birthright was my least favorite because it was just too easy. Because I'm a Fire Emblem veteran, and I found myself breezing through, like, most of the maps. Revelation would be second because it was definitely harder. The maps had more variety, and it had an amazing final battle. The one in Birthright was too basic for my tastes. And then Conquest is my favorite. Besides the fact that it's brutally tough, but I found a way to cheat the system, it also has the most satisfying story conclusion and a couple of really cool twists in there, so. And I like the support conversations in Conquest a lot better. So, yeah, now that I'm finished with the Fates trilogy, just stay tuned for the epic waves of DLC on their way. Definitely try out the Hidden Truths DLC pack if you can, but also there's an Heirs of Fate, like 12-part DLC package. If you purchase Map Pack 2, you can get it for you can buy the map pack, and then as each episode is doled out, you'll get it automatically when it comes out, rather than paying for each of them individually. I highly recommend it because it talks about what happened to those other side characters after the Fates trilogy is complete. So anyway, yeah, all three games are definitely worth a try. If you can get the special editions, you can just get all three on one game card. Great. Otherwise, yeah, Fates is definitely a latest addition to the Fire Emblem series. Probably wouldn't beat out Radiant Dawn in my humble opinion, but on the other hand, it's definitely much more user-friendly, so maybe some of you will disagree with me. Maybe some of you will say, hey Paul, it's about time Fire Emblem started embracing the casual audience over the intense. So I'll leave that up to you to decide. So for now, definitely check out the game if you can. From my Catholic perspective, there's definitely a lot of really cool moral high ground in there, so it got me thinking a few times, and you should find a lot to like here. So, with that being said, thank you for listening to my review, and until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.